How's it going, hodlers? Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about Bitcoin, where it is and where we think it's going to go in the near term, at least. Before we get into that, go ahead and like this video. It really helps share these videos out, especially still trying to grow. And currently it's kind of looking like the Bitcoin chart with the channel TA. But I'd really appreciate the likes that you give on these videos. Let's go ahead and get into it. So first I wanted to talk about Bitcoin, where it is right now. So we have closed below the 50-week, or kind of riding on the 50-week. Some people thought that we could bounce up above. I did think that most likely we were either going to ride it or go lower. Now we have seen a situation like what we're seeing before. So we saw this situation back in March. So we talk about the March dip all the time, but there are fundamental differences between the March dip and the dip that we're dealing with now. Sure, granted, this whole spike down here was caused by news and FUD, but arguably we were way out of pace with the 2017 bull market, which means that we were due for a correction. And I think a lot of TA analysts were saying this, saying that we needed a correction back up in here. But even now, like, are we still in correction territory? Are we still ahead of schedule? And I would argue that yes, we're still kind of ahead of schedule here. And I'll show that here based on the 2017 chart. Now, if we think about how we've been talking about market cycles, most likely that they're going to lengthen over time. They're going to dramatically be less and less in terms of the ROI. So we know a couple of things, or we can assume a couple of things. We don't quite know, but also a 4-year microcycle. At this point, a 4-year market cycle theory is kind of out the window. Now, I could be wrong, and this could be the end of it, but I highly doubt that that's the case. Now, if we look at the 2017 run-up from the bottom, from our current bottom, so of the 2023 run-up, whatever you want to call this, you see that it was out of pace basically over here where we're getting way more ROI, and then out of here when we're also getting way more ROI. So what we're talking about when we're talking lengthening market cycles or longer market cycles is we're talking about something that's a little bit longer, right? Longer than the 4 years, the 4 years of 2017. Now, on the same token, we've also discussed diminishing returns, so less ROI over time. Now, what might we expect the chart to do is maybe move something more like this and kind of lengthen out, but also have a lower ROI, a lower rate of return. So something like that would have made sense, but obviously we were out of pace in these two areas. So what does that mean for where Bitcoin's going to go, what Bitcoin's doing right now? I do think Bitcoin is just in a dramatic correction right now, and I do think that at this point we most likely can see Bitcoin in the short term, and I want to be very careful with what I'm saying here. In the short term, Bitcoin can go down to roughly 25K. I do think we've lost a lot, but I think that there's a lot of buying pressure, and if we do go sub 30K to the 25K mark, I promise you there's tons of money waiting to buy at that price. So I do expect it to recover and come back up, maybe flirt with 30K, around 30K for a while, and then we'll have a re-engagement of our bull cycle sometime in 2022. I've said that we could see end of year 2021 at the earliest, but most likely sometime in 2022, and then market peak sometime early 2023 or end of 2022. So those are my predictions of where we're going to go for the market cycle. Now, it is important to note that, like I said, there's a lot of money on the sidelines waiting for this market dip. So if it does dip, it's not going to stay there for long. So definitely take advantage. I've been talking about this a lot. Anytime that you buy at the 50-week moving average is pretty much almost a guaranteed thing that you're going to do well. And then again, if you sell at the 50-week moving average, that's a sign that you probably shouldn't even be in this market because you're selling out of emotion. You're not selling out of logic. Everything right now is saying a buying signal, so just follow the smart money and take advantage of this opportunity. Now would be the time to absolutely set up dollar cost averaging, maybe daily dollar cost averaging with Bitcoin, because the prices could go lower in the near term, and just be ready with some cash on the sidelines. Now, that being said, we could obviously see the rebound and then a re-flirting of the 30K. Now, why do I say that we're not going to go right into a bull market? Well, I still think Bitcoin needs to calm down and we need to relax a little bit until we're able to hit those numbers. Now, again, this is based on lengthening market cycles, but I think this is what a lot of people think that cycles are going to do as we mature. So we definitely could be seeing that in play. Again, I don't think that this was a market peak. I think this was just a big run up for a bunch of news and a bunch of really coordinated effort to make the public buy Bitcoin. And then now we're just shaking everyone out and then getting a hold of cheaper Bitcoin for the smart money. Now, the reason why I keep saying that people are on the sidelines waiting to buy is a couple of things. The Rothschilds have actually boosted their investment on GBTC, the Grayscale ETF or the Grayscale fund, whatever it is. I'm not too knowledgeable about funds and ETFs, the difference. But the Rothschilds have increased their holdings, which is smart money. And this is amidst the Grayscale unlock. So now that they're unlocking the holdings, now it's time to enter, right? So you can obviously tell that now is not the time to be selling. Now is the time to be buying. So obviously people are scooping this up. I'm definitely going to be adding some Bitcoin into my TFSA and then obviously some into my hodl bags as well. Now, even though the smart money is buying, Bitcoin miners have started selling and is a bear market ahead. So obviously right now we're looking at a very high amount of selling pressure from miners. This could be due to a couple of things. One being the Chinese regulations. It could be them basically just selling out. So they make mention here because of environmental concerns. It could be China just selling out of their holdings, trying to get out of the market, possibly move into something else. But I don't really like using miners as a traditional identifier of whether or not we're going to be in a bear market or a bull market. I think that's a very dangerous idea and mentality to get to because there's a lot of factors in why a miner could be selling. Energy costs come into play, regulations, and everything else. What the market cycle is going to do is going to be completely irrelevant from what the miners do. But that's my opinion, of course. It is a good signal and it is a good idea to recognize what's happening when we see a chart move like this. So obviously miners are getting shaken out, but they could be anticipating short-term losses and looking to get out now at a higher price before the prices go down a little bit lower. But I do think that we are in a bearish trend within the bull part of our market cycle. So we're not in a bear market of the market cycle. So if we look at the market cycle as a grander thing, we'll have a bear and a bull part. But even in the bullish part of the market cycle, we'll have bear trends during that. And even those bear trends, as we get a longer market cycle, we can see those bear trends go up months. Maybe in the future, we could see year-long bear trends. I know it's not fun. And a lot of people here are probably here after all of the bear market stuff and just used to crypto going up. But really, when I was in the bear market, the biggest thing that happened with the bear market, it was just a lot of waiting. And it just seems like that's what we're going through right now. And I think everyone needs to just be patient because obviously things are just going to take time, especially when we're talking about longer market cycles in the future and as the asset class matures. But right now, we are looking pretty low. Even the crypto market is still pretty low. So we'll talk about that in a moment. Jack Dorsey, Elon Musk, and Cathie Wood are set to have a live talk for the B Word, the Bitcoin conference. So that is going to happen on Wednesday, July 21st at 12 p.m. I'm not sure exactly what's going to come out of it. Now, I will say I'm a huge fan of Jack Dorsey specifically. He's a big proponent of Bitcoin. I think he's doing a lot of good for the space for Bitcoin specifically. I'm going to leave Twitter completely out of this because I know that ruffles some feathers. Elon Musk, obviously, we all know who Elon Musk is. I don't think we need to talk about that anymore. But I think what's good to see is a lot of people aren't trusting his word nearly as much. And then Cathie Wood, which is also probably going to be somebody set to orchestrate a buying opportunity for Bitcoin if it does go down to these low prices. And we know that there's a huge industry need in the financial system. And one bank in particular is JP Morgan. JP Morgan is on a hiring spree for its blockchain unit, Onyx. Now, they've been on this spree for a number of years, so this is not much new, but obviously things have ramped up in the space, and it seems to be a weird time for us market people looking at the price of Bitcoin to be like, oh, why are we investing in Bitcoin technology now? Or why are we investing in crypto right now? And that's because we know exactly where it's going to go. When you're looking at macro trends, macroeconomic trends, and you look at something like Bitcoin, and obviously Bitcoin's going down, but one big thing about Bitcoin is one Bitcoin has always been one Bitcoin. But the same cannot be said about the United States dollar. I think Robert Kiyosaki says it best. He says, why save when the government's just going to print money? And I actually, I thought about that a little bit. And why save when the government is just going to print money? Because all that is devaluing your money. It is a tax without taxation legislation. It's a direct theft from the people to print more money. So when we realize that, and then when we look at countries like El Salvador and Paraguay and a bunch of other countries looking into bringing in Bitcoin in the fold, when you look at all of that and you look at the fallacy that is the United States dollar and fiat currency, you start to really realize that we are in something big here, and it's probably going to change the world. And it's of course going to change exactly how we think about money. And I don't think we're going to be trusting anything like a United States dollar after a pending collapse. But again, I'm a little bit bearish on the United States dollar. You guys know me. I'm more of a Bitcoin and gold kind of guy. But it's kind of a hill that I'm going to die on at this point. But currently, Bitcoin is sitting at 30,735. It is dipping down. Again, we are below the 50-week moving average, and we could dip down lower. We have our close here in 4 days. This could be a very volatile week, so I want everyone to be prepared. We could go pretty volatile to the downside. And then if we do go down to the downside, I do promise that there's going to be a lot of buying pressure down at those low levels. And if we do see that, we should see a rapid increase shortly after. So it should make for some short-term gains as long as we go down low enough. But it'll also prove to give long-term gains if we're talking about a 6-month to 1 to 2 year ROI. So I think that now is definitely the time to be looking into being very, very greedy for Bitcoin and where it's going to go. The lower Bitcoin gets, the more bullish I get, and maybe that upsets people, and it is what it is. I get greedy at low Bitcoin costs. I got greedy when Bitcoin was at 3K, and I'm going to feel the exact same way because I haven't had an opportunity like this since COVID. So I'm absolutely going to take advantage of this right now. The crypto market is currently sitting at $1.288 trillion. So we are still far away from our all-time high. We've lost a lot of value in the crypto market, but the market is down to roughly 4% today. Bitcoin down 10%. Ethereum down 14.7%, definitely picking up a lot of those losses that it hadn't lost before. And that's why I mentioned that Ethereum maybe isn't such a great buy at this price. It could definitely go lower, but it still has a lot of support. So I wouldn't be waiting for too low prices because it could also be propped up by EIP 1559. So do expect that. Cardano is currently holding pretty strong at $1.12. I know that's scary for a lot of people to see ADA that low, but the reality is that ADA has a lot of value from where it was previously, so I wouldn't be overly worried. As long as you're earning an interest on your ADA, I don't see much of a problem. But that's it for me. Hopefully this helped kind of calm some nerves. I mentioned this specifically a lot in my videos, but I want to just mention this here. I have a lot of issues in my life. I deal with a lot of stuff on a day-to-day, stress and everything else, just a bunch of stuff that is always piling on. But cryptocurrency in my portfolio is not and will never be one of those issues. I don't let the market faze me. The best investment advice I've ever gotten in my life was buy and close your eyes. And I really take that to heart. I know exactly what Bitcoin is. I know exactly where it's going. And I know exactly where my altcoins, I know where ADA is going. I know where Polkadot is going. If you have done your research and you trust what you've researched, you should trust your investment and not look into these price dips as a time to sell or a time to capitulate in. Now is absolutely the time to start looking at taking advantage and making sure your dollar cost averages are in place. That's it for me. Hopefully you guys like this video. Go ahead and give me a like. It really helps share these videos out. Subscribe to the channel for more crypto news and content. And of course, happy hodling.